I feel like that's what's important about handmade knives versus buying just a factory-made cheap one from the store, is you're kind of breathing life into it in a way that just buying something like that.
Hello and welcome. I am Shelby Abrahamson here in the Foxsy studio, and today we are joined by Sean Riley from Diligent Knives. Sean, do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Hi, my name is Sean Riley. I'm a knife maker. I make mostly culinary knives, and they're all handmade. I make custom work for people. If they come to me with an idea and want to see it turn into something, I try and help them figure that out. I just love making things, and this is what I make right now.
Awesome. Really quick, to just get started, do you want to tell us where you were born and raised?
I was born and raised in Montana. We spent a little time in my childhood in Alaska and also in Washington State, but moved back to Montana, and I just roamed around the wilderness with my family.
That is so cool. I grew up mostly in rural Oklahoma, so it's not Montana by any means, but I have a respect for, growing up in the country and kind of like dealing with wildlife and kind of being out a little bit away from people. It teaches you different skills, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
How did you begin making knives?
Well, I kind of ended up in a situation where I had an opportunity to do something new, and I ran with it. I basically just always wanted to do it and just started one day. I just made the decision that that's what I was going to at least see what it was like, and so I just got a hacksaw and a piece of metal and some files, and I read a little bit on the internet about how to do that, and I just started.
Wow. I mean, that's some just bootstraps type stuff right there, just getting into it.
Super scrappy.
What kind of materials did you need? I mean, you had the files and you had a hacksaw. Is that all you really needed? Like, you didn't need like any fancy like blowtorch, or I don't know what kind of like materials you would typically use.
I kind of, well, I just used what I had, and I had a small amount of funds to put towards this, and I just started learning part of it. Okay, I need a hacksaw. Okay, I'll learn how to do this with a hacksaw. A file's very cheap. Oh, now I'm going to build this jig so that I can learn how to file at a specific angle. And I learned a ton about the material and how angles work by working in this process. The most important thing I had was patience and time to be able to do this, because it was not an easy thing to spend hours and days and weeks just slowly filing away at this knife.
Oh, you're telling me that you can't just learn this overnight?
No, it takes a lot of practice, and I guess as I learned something new, I would learn what not to do, which is super important. The more you learn what not to do, the easier it is to figure out better ways to do something.
Yep, mistakes are essential, really.
Yeah, tons of mistakes. So I was just basically just really open to making a lot of mistakes and not being afraid of it and not being scared of messing anything up. I just kind of started doing it. And I mean, the material's not delicate anyways, so it takes a while before you really mess something up. Most of the time, certain processes are kind of, you do it or you don't. But I just did it step by step. Okay, what's the next step? What do I need to do? How do I learn how to harden this? What do I need to do that? And I built a little tiny mini forge, also very scrappy, and learned what temperature, how it needed to work, using the steel that I had, how to quench it, and I just made it happen.
That sounds like, it does sound scrappy, but it sounds like a lot of sort of ingenuity or just problem solving, really. Just a lot of solving each problem as it comes up and just kind of dealing with each one as it arises. But I love that. I love the methodology of that it's not necessarily, you don't necessarily need to like go to a fancy school or apprentice necessarily. You can just kind of pick something up and learn it. Because I would never have thought before talking to you that's something, that knife making, something as hearty as that, is something that you could just kind of learn on your own.
I mean, I think in the modern age, with having an internet connection, I just used YouTube a ton, watched a lot of people who put their knowledge out into the world and learned from them. A lot of people were really receptive. When I had questions, I would ask other knife makers and they would kind of guide me along. And so I did, in a way, have a community, and it's almost like a modern apprenticeship that is based on your own interests and ability to just keep going.
So, so you learned most of this online, or all of it online?
Yeah, trial and error and watching other makers' tutorial videos. And then I got to know a few other makers. I would ask them questions, and then it would just be a whole lot of trial and error.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, so Foxsy is an online learning company, and like I did not go to art school. I just kind of like learned. A lot of it is just stuff that I learned online and picked up from watching others, and of course the trial and error, the just trying things. And it's one of those things that I know I could, you can learn a lot of those like 2D art and some crafts and whatnot online. But it never occurred to me really that again, those more hands-on type crafts could be taught in this environment, that could be learned in this environment successfully. But clearly it's successful because you've got a business that's been running now for how long?
About 8 years. I've been making knives and selling them.
I mean, it clearly worked, and you're clearly killing it, because I mean, I've seen the knives. They're beautiful. They're absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, you clearly put a lot of love and craft and care into them. And it's just, I just assumed that, I don't know, you went to school for this or something. But you went to school for the Art Institute, right?
I was just thinking about that when you were saying that you hadn't gone to school. I did. I went to art school, and I remember I went to the Art Institute in Chicago here, and I remember the first year in doing some of the first level classes, that just being in the class wasn't going to make me a better artist. It wasn't going to make me draw better. These people were there to help guide you as you needed to put in the effort to become a better artist, a better drawer. You had to put in the time and the effort, and to be open to learning the techniques they could help you learn, and then applying yourself to do those things. So I did, in a way, by going to school and learning how to apply yourself when you're in a situation like that, when you have knowledge, learning online or learning in a class, it's up to you to develop that. It's really your responsibility, and I think that I learned a lot of that being in a situation like that, where it really is on you to do what you can.
And that actually brings me very nicely to the next question, which is, so what kept you going in those early stages when you were just learning it and you were in the rough stages before you really started to fine-tune the process? So what kept you going through that very beginner level stage?
Curiosity, and I think that I was and patience, for sure, having a lot of patience, and then celebrating the little wins. Like if I would learn something, or all of a sudden after spending all this time cutting and hacking away, like let's talk about like the very first knives I made with these like rudimentary tools. All of a sudden I went from having this hunk of steel I didn't know hardly anything about to what looked like the shape of a knife. And then I started filing away at it. And then it started looking more and more like a knife. And I kept going and going. And next step, and I'd learn something. And there's a magical moment to this day when I make knives for me where there's two. One where I put my maker's mark on it, which is when you just either stamp or electrochemical etch your logo onto the blade. That, in a way, just sort of solidified that it was, to me, something that I did and I made. It was my creation in a way. And then when I would take the handle material and put it onto the blade, and it would just be this clunky chunks of wood with pins sticking out of it and a bunch of glue just dripping off of it, on top of something I just spent hours, and in the case of the first knives, weeks, spending all this time hand filing and sanding and making it super shiny and everything to like totally trust that this next process would get there eventually, but I just had to open myself up to it. And then as soon as I start shaping that into a handle, all of a sudden it's just a knife. And it's just this moment where it just becomes the thing that I'd been spending all that time.
It's like with pens, which is probably not dissimilar because in pens, which I have a billion of, they're almost always either Japanese or German. And there's got to be some kind of a correlation there because tons of blades are Japanese or German.
Yeah, that's interesting. Those are two things that are everyday objects. Everyone has. Not a lot of people pay attention to. But if you do, and you take the time, and you have just something quality, you're going to have it for a long time. You take care of it. I feel that way strongly about a lot of different things you can have in your life. You can have less things cluttering your life if you have better things that you can take care of, like good boots, good footwear that you can recraft, that are made by human beings in a place.
Yep.
Yeah.
What brand are they?
These are Red Wings.
Red Wings?
Uh-huh.
I'm a big Boots fan, but I have Thursdays, but this is an American brand. They're handmade and everything. And
yeah.
I'm a stickler for like a good pair of leather boots. Maybe it's because of the leatherworking background, but I hate pleather with a passion.
Yeah, I mean, they're made by people. You can get a hold of people. You can send those back and get them redone, recrafted. So you pay more on the front, like you do with nice pens or handmade knives, but you have a connection to people and people who know what they're doing, who love what they're doing, that aren't just selling something, as much of it as they can, and then moving on.
It's quality. I mean, it's quality over quantity. The good old classic.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that.
I try as often as I can to buy things like that end up costing less in the long run. I have two pairs of Red Wings, and one of them I just sent back to Red Wing to get recrafted. I've had them for 12 years.
Wow,
and,
yeah.
If you think about how much I spent on one pair of boots versus all of the cheap pairs of boots I've bought for just working construction and in wood shops and stuff, I've spent more on all those other boots that have all just disappeared, can't be fixed in any way. They're just, you use them and then it's garbage. Or this pair that I've had and wore in all those environments, and now I'm going to basically, they're just breathing new life into them, which you can do with nice knives. You respect them, take care of them, and they're going to outperform everything and stick around a whole lot longer.
Such an odd little thing, but we love it. When we moved into our house in Champaign, so we owned the house and everything, one of the things that we discovered that was left behind by the previous tenants who'd lived there for like 15 years was this absolutely enormous, big old Japanese, I think it's Japanese chef knife, big old block like the butcher knife, big old thing. And it has like some kind of a bamboo handle, it's wire wrapped, there's a Japanese stamp like imprinted in the steel, and it looks very old. And it's very sharp, and we still use it sometimes whenever we have like a big piece of meat or something that needs to be cut. But it's one of those that I'm so curious about the history of it because it was clearly made by hand, and it was clearly. So now we just have it. We kept it around even though we almost never use it because it's kind of a memento of our first house. But it's also just like it's got its own history. We joked about it being haunted for a long time when we first got it because jumped out at us from a from a shelf. But yeah, it's just it definitely has the feel that if we can pass that down to our kids. And
Yeah, I love that. That has a story to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what draws me to making these things as well. Like I'm sort of breathing life into this thing. It's a product. I run a business. I'm trying to make them and sell them and be able to make more of them and continue to do that in a cycle, because I want to just be able to do that, continue to do that. But when I make them, I'm breathing life into it. I'm learning. My knives are slowly getting better as I progress, but I still stand by the first knives I made. But people get to have those, and then they get to imbue them with stories and maybe leave them behind for somebody else to find, and then there's a whole mystery, and then that object takes on a life with you as well.
Yeah. I just think that's so cool, because there's, like I said, this is like a real craftsman type thing. This isn't just a product to you. This is very clearly a passion, and I gotta ask, what is the general process? Like, can you just give us like a very simplified version of just walking through the stages?
Sure. Let's see. So I would come up with an idea. I want to make a chef knife. So I start doing research on chef knives, maybe thinking about it when I'm cooking at home, what I like about the knives that I have, what I would want out of something. Then I would do some sketches, draw something out, and then I would then cut something like that out of wood and look at it and see what the design and angles start looking like with these sort of prototypes, which...
You'd make like a model basically out
Yeah.
of wood. Oh,
Yeah, it's super quick. It's easy for me to do. I can
Makes a
do
ton
that.
of
I do
sense.
that with custom orders for people a lot of the time, so they can sort of come in and get an idea of what the shape or the handle will feel like to a degree.
That never occurred to me as a step. It makes sense though, like, because like sewists and like seamstresses will make a pattern out of muslin before they start doing it with all of the nice materials. It never occurred to me to do that with a knife, but that makes so much sense.
Yeah, and it saves time and a lot of material doing it like that.
Yeah.
And then I suppose for me, then I decide what I need this material to do, how it needs to perform, because there's lots of different types of metal that have pluses and minuses. There's no perfect metal that's the magical end all of everything. So I've settled on a type of metal that I like to use, and I worked with friends who are chefs on a lot of this R&D in the very beginning. It was super helpful.
Yeah.
So I definitely utilize my community and the people that I know whenever I can, which feels very collaborative in itself. So then I'll find the steel, and for me, I create knives using the stock removal method, which is different than a blacksmith style, where they'll take a billet and hammer it out into a shape, and from there they'll then grind it and do all the final work. I start with a bar stock, similar in size and thickness of what I want my end product spine to be, and then I cut out the shape and shape it, profile it exactly how I want it into what's called a blank of the knife, and then I either heat treat it at that point, which is similar process to baking, where you're basically just pulling out all of the best parts of what that type of metal can do. You're hardening it. When you're first working on it, it's in a state where it's softer and it's easier to work with. At this point, you then harden it, and then it tempers to draw it back out into the hardness you want it, so that it performs the way that you are intending it to. And then I'll start grinding away and grind away and grind away. And at this point, I'm also working on the handle material, where I'll mill it out. I put a lot of my woods through a process called stabilizing, which basically impregnates the wood with a resin, and then I cure it and it hardens. And so in environments where people are cutting around a lot of acids and there's going to be water, it just makes the wood really strong so it won't swell or crack.
That, again, makes total sense, but you're explaining it to me, and I've never thought about the fact that the handles of all of my knives don't, like, my cutting board will change when it gets, like, wet, you know, whenever it slowly starts to warp and change over time, as do, like, my wooden spoons. But the knives handles, I never stopped to think about how they might make those different. So that's, again, very, very smart. I mean, of course, people have figured this out. I'm just learning it for the first time, but...
I mean, I didn't know that at the very beginning either. I just happened to be using woods that were really hard and didn't need to be stabilized because they inherently didn't swell or crack so much. But then I started getting some knives that were doing that, and I learned that process.
Trial and error.
Trial and error.
Yep.
And I learned how to do that and what I needed to do to stabilize it, and now I just have the process. So then after I do that, I have what are called scales. That's what they call the pieces that are the sides of your handle. And I'll take those with my knife that is ground out and has the edge and it looks like a blade, and I'll glue those handles on with pins into the knife. The style I do is full tang, so the handle shape, the metal follows it all the way through. There's tons of different ways to make knives, tons of different styles. Some people hammer them all out like a blacksmith. Some people do it the way that I do it. The handles can be done different. This is how I like to do it. These are the way I make it. So I will glue them onto that, and then that cures overnight, and then I start grinding away at the handle and shaping it by hand on my machine. So I'll just shape it away on the sanding belts that I use and kind of eye it and keep working on it until I have a pretty finished product, and then I do a lot of hand finishing work, and then I do the final edge on the knife.
Wow.
And then we have a finished sharp blade ready to go.
That sounds like an incredible process. How long does it take typically?
It sort of depends. If it's something that I make and it's a line of knives that I've already designed, I've shaved off lots of hours on that because I've learned how to expedite the processes. There's still processes that can take longer than that, curing times for
Naturally, yeah, like
for the glue and waiting to put a new coat on the wood in the final stages of finishing.
okay.
I also sometimes I'll send the knives out to be heat treated by a local company all at once. So I work with them on doing that, and so it can take maybe a week to get my knives back from them.
Okay, like a kiln or a forge or something.
Yeah, they specifically have giant furnaces for specifically heat treating knives, and I use a steel that is a modern steel that is a pretty in-depth process to get it to harden the way that I want it to be. And they have metallurgists and everyone on staff there, and I can talk to them and be like, this is what I want out of this is the hardness, and they will do it all for me, which is great because I get to collaborate with them.
Yeah.
I get to send out a step that would normally take me a really long time to do and cost me a lot in buying all of this equipment, where I can use a local company and keep it all in there, and I get to make more knives.
Yeah, I mean, that's classic outsourcing right there. It's just if you don't need to do it yourself, collaborating with someone who knows how to do it already is fantastic. That's so cool that you have someone, like you have a local company that you can do that with. Is that something that I just moved to Chicago, I mean, in the last 6 months or so, and I've never lived in a major city before, so it's new to me having access to so many different people, so many different resources and businesses and everything. Is this something that you think is, do you think that you would have been able to have that this is, I don't know how common, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't know how common like that kind of what their business is. Is this the kind of resource that you think is intrinsic to living in a major city, or is this something that you think you'd be able to find elsewhere?
I think that I'm very lucky. Being in a big city, there are a lot of, especially a place like Chicago, there's a lot of manufacturing and things like that. So it's easier to find companies that do things like that locally. I know there are other smaller companies that do that, where I know other knife makers in the country that they send their knives to a specific place somewhere else in the country. It's like a
Like
mom and pop
ship them
place,
off.
and then they get them back
Yeah.
to do something similar. There are other guys who just have their own kiln set up, and they can do that. They use steels that they can process themselves. I think for me, I've lived here for a long time and been a part of a lot of different artistic communities here, and have made a lot of friends, and I have a lot of connections within different areas and knowing different people, and I try and ask questions and talk to people and learn from them. And like you said, I think finding someone who maybe does something better than I do, and having them help me with something is a great way to learn more about it and get a better product. And
Yeah.
a lot of what I do is I like to collaborate with other makers. I have friends who are photographers who've taken a lot of photos for me for my website, and I have friends who are artists and designers who have helped me design my some of my logos and layout for my website. I also work with other makers doing collaborative one-off pieces or small runs. Like I have a friend who's a musician, but he has a passion for leatherworking, and we just did a line of honing strops.
I remember seeing those at the winter market. There was a winter market at the Kimball Arts Center a couple months ago, and you had a display out. I remember going down and commenting on them, because again, like that old world feel of just like an old-fashioned leather honing strop, you said.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that they were beautiful, and your friend did great work.
Yeah, thank you. He did, and we got to chat about that. I learned a ton more about leather work and what he does to do that, and he had never thought of making that before, so I got to show him what it was and how to do it, and we just kind of created this product together.
It's so cool how you were able to put your heads together and share so much with each other, and both in the process and in the knowledge, and just expanding each other's horizons just a little bit more. That's
Yeah.
just really, one of the reasons I moved here is because I wanted to be around people to be able to do that very thing, because I've been one of the few like in-person artists or creators that I know. Like there's just not a lot of them. I guess I haven't been looking for them, really. That's my bad, because they're everywhere. But I love you grew up with a lot of like, sort of self-sufficient style approach to things. You need something, you made something. But I love how in that you're not self-sufficient to the point of being an isolationist. You still collaborate, and you still put your head together with other creators, and you still learn from and share your knowledge with others. And I think it's just a really beautiful way of still relying on the expertise of others, while still also doing a lot of this stuff yourself, and having a very specific hand on it, a very specific style and thing that you're going for. It's just a really lovely mix that you've created.
Yeah, I grew up in a small town in Montana, and it could feel like you were sort of very lonely as someone who made art. Maybe I could sometimes feel that way, but then I would meet somebody and realize there were so many different people who had their own take on things and were creating their own things, and everyone sort of helped each other. And when I moved to Chicago and became part of just like a massive community where there were just so many people who made that their focus, not necessarily growing up where I grew up, not everyone would say, hey, I'm a photographer and that's what I do. They would be like, oh, I love to take pictures and I do that when I go on hikes in my spare time. But they were a photographer. They just
Didn't necessarily title themselves that way.
yeah. So
The label wasn't really important.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I was open to being around everyone else's creativity and what they did, learning from it, and then being able to take what I would learn from them or the inspiration I would get from them and direct it towards whatever it was that I wanted to make, which is really what I am. I just like making things.
Yeah.
And this is what I've decided to put my direction into as far as what I'm making right now.
Yeah. That's a lovely, I don't know, I just really like your perspective on it. Because you talked about curiosity earlier and about how that kept you driven during those rough early stages. And I want to talk a little bit more about how curiosity fuels your process. So can you speak a little bit more on like how curiosity has played a role in your creativity?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's crucial. It's crucial to creativity for me to be able to develop my ideas and to be open to finding inspiration in areas that I wouldn't necessarily think I would come to some sort of conclusion that would end up helping me. So being open to that is something that I think is really important.
Are there any particular things that come to mind of examples of finding your curiosity in unexpected places?
Well, I have worked for some woodworkers and in wood shops, building certain things. I helped a friend of mine who is a guitar builder for a while, and I learned a ton of techniques doing that as I was learning how to do them, I would be like, oh, wow, this is something I can apply to doing this in this way. So it's more, you sort of compound these abilities and learn different ways to take those and do something else with them. And the more that I do that in different areas and aspects, the better I can, the more I can do with that kind of knowledge as I direct it towards something I want to do, because I'm learning all these weird techniques, and maybe it's like a inch deep and a mile wide, but I can take all those things and start to really hone it in and develop something that's my own. And I think that's also really important, is to understand that all of that stuff is part of your journey, and everyone's going to have a different journey and learn weird different techniques and things along the way, and that's all going to help you develop into your own personal whatever it is you decide to create.
Yeah. So it kind of is making me think of with drawings, and it doesn't just apply to drawing, it's just that that's what I know. But one thing that I am constantly striving to do, and I tell other people, is it's not that you have to draw, like you don't need to know how to draw everything well. It's more about like, again, like an inch deep and a mile wide. Kind of getting like the rough idea of a lot of things, building a mental library of a little bit of a lot of things can go a long way in just the process, because you never know exactly like what's going to help you with whatever the next thing is that you're going to draw. You could learn how to draw grass or like the texture of grass or backgrounds or something, and have that in some weird roundabout way apply and still grow your skills on a completely different subject. And it's interesting to hear about how that also kind of applies to just sort of a broader knowledge of knowing a lot about a lot of things, or knowing a little bit about a lot of things can just generally help you. Like I said, it compounds. It's like interest. It builds and it grows and it develops your ideas, it develops your tastes and your skills and your styles. But yeah, that's fascinating to hear about like the woodworking and the guitar building and how that's all kind of come together into what you know now. All of those roads led you to where you are.
Yeah, I think I think it's important, like with painting or drawing or woodworking or working with metal, you learn the basics, really learn them well, and then you can pull from lots of different areas and put those on top of the basics, and then you start to make those things really special. But yeah, fundamentals across the board, including fundamentals of just understanding creativity and yourself and how you can develop ideas, is super important, because then it doesn't matter where you're pulling these ideas from, you can then kind of mold those into something that helps you create whatever it is you're trying to make.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about some more of your creative interests? I found that creative people tend to rarely have just one or two creative interests.
Oh yeah, so many. I've made and created so many different things over the years. I've painted, done a lot of drawing, made a lot of music, and recorded a lot of music. I guess all of that stuff is making in a way. So
yeah, absolutely.
It hits differently. They do different things.
It tickled different parts of the brain.
For sure. And they also, painting is something that's kind of a long process that's very personal, and then you kind of let it out into the world. Music is so much more immediate. Like, you may toil developing a song, but it's something that when people listen to it, it's a more visceral experience, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, music is another one of those things that's so core to our human identity. It's one of the few things that sets us apart. I mean, art and music are two of the things that, especially creativity, really, but it manifests a lot in art and music. Sets us apart from the rest of the animal kingdom, and it's something that's so intrinsic to just like the human DNA, human being. So it makes sense that, like I said, they tickle different parts of the brain, but music especially. Music is a universal language. What kind of music did you make?
I played
Do you make?
Now, I mean, my tastes have always been so varied, and I played lots of different types of music. I grew up playing some old country tunes with my uncles, who kind of taught themselves how to play guitar. So I kind of grew up with a weird folk tradition of sitting around at an uncle's house and playing guitar and picking while my aunts would sing harmonies, and some random guy would show up with a fiddle and start ripping. And so I had that kind of in the beginning, and I got into punk and metal and played a lot of that in heavier bands, super weird stuff. I like a lot of really mellow ambient stuff now.
Yeah.
So I've kind of calmed down in my older age and chilled out. But I think all of that kind of plays into just developing and making things as you get better at it, as you grow, as you learn new things. All of those other things I still have with me. Now I make tools, and they're tools that I want people to use and take and have stories with, but I want them to cook things. I love cooking, I love food, and this was sort of adjacent to that world of cooking, where I could make something that's still a part of that world.
Yeah, absolutely. And cooking is absolutely a form of creativity. That's another thing that separates us from the rest of the animals, is being able to make things like that. But it's one of those things that cooking can so much seem like a mundane process, but there are times whenever I cook that it's just like a restorative, magical process. You get into the flow of it, and it really does kind of have that same effect as sitting down for a drawing session, or I don't play music, but I sing, like that kind of like expressive flow state. And there are times that cooking can be just incredible.
Oh yeah, I love how food can connect people to a place or memories. My brother has this really funny mental thing where he remembers situations and places he's visited through the food, and I found this out in a really funny way. But now if I want him to remember a place we were at together, I'll just tell him what he was eating at that time if I remember, and he will remember everything about the whole experience based on that. That's just like how he ties
Yeah.
and bookmarks his memories is through food, which
That's
is so interesting.
Cool. That's
And-
so, I mean, I don't think it's unique because I imagine a lot of people have that, but to be able to so succinctly point out, like, this is you were eating spaghetti and have him just zero in on it, that's such a cool, like, skill. It also feels like a great way to prank him sometime.
Oh, yeah, right. I might try and do that.
Yeah.
It's just, there's like a connection to food that we all have, which I just love how knife making, it's just a tool like we were talking about. It's just something maybe no one thinks about. You just use it it's a means to an end to something else, including food. A lot of people just, I'm hungry, I need to do something about that. But then it can be so much more. You can develop it into so much more. You can enrich your life through all of these different things in very simple ways, if you just allow yourself to be open to that.
Yeah, you don't need to be a gourmet chef in order to have food be a major restorative, happy, good part of your life. But having the right tools can definitely go a long way. Rounding out here, getting to the end, do you have any predictions for where your creativity will take you?
I don't, but what I do have is trust that if I just continue moving forward and developing these ideas and allowing myself to sort of go down that path but not necessarily know where it's going to lead, it's going to go somewhere great. And I just have to believe that's the case and continue to develop my practices and curiosities. And I think it's exciting to not know exactly where you're going to end up, but just to have a drive and a focus and believe you're going to get where you need to get to.
Yeah, I mean, knowing the end destination kind of takes away the magic. It's a little bit fun
It's
to...
the journey, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's cliche, but it is true. It's true. You can't knock it. It's just like practice is the best form of learning things. I know a lot of people cringe when they hear that, but that's the way. That you're not going to get better until you try, and you're bad for a while. That's just kind of another universal truth of making art, or of any kind of craftsmanship, really. So on that, is there any advice that you give to someone who is maybe struggling or putting off a passion project?
Yes. I think that you should just start. Don't be afraid of what it's going to look like or what you think needs to happen. Just start it. That's the hardest thing to do. And once you do that, it's all going to either fall into place or you're going to realize something else you want to be doing. It just make the first steps, make it happen, and
that's great advice.
And you'll get there.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. Just jump in, give it a try, give it a whirl.
Be courageous.
Yeah, be courageous. It's take the leap and build your wings on the way down, kind of a thing. What's the phrase? Inspiration is on the other side of fear, something like that. It's sometimes you just have to get out of your own way.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming in and chatting with us. It has been fantastic to hear a little bit more about your background and your process, and I love your mentality and your perspective on things. It's so rich. I don't know how, I need to find better words, but it's so rich and interesting to dig in as to like how you got to where you are and where you're going. So I really appreciate you coming in and sharing. Really quick, do you want to tell us where people can find you?
Sure. You can find me at my website, diligentknives.com, or Instagram at diligent_knives. Either one of those is a great way to get a hold of me. And if you want to chat knives or cooking or anything, just get a hold of me.
Rock on. Right. Well, this has been Sean Riley from Diligent Knives. Thank you so much for coming in. And I'm your host, Shelby Abrahamson. Thanks so much, and join us next time.